Welcome. I'm Dali, the host of the Dalitalks show, where I share knowledge and valuable information in hopes to inspire you to reach your goals, overcome hard times, and so that you know that you're not alone. Today's guest is Dilenny Guzman. She is a career empowerment educator who teaches her students to be the CEO of their dreams. Without further ado, here's my interview with Dilenny. Hi, Delaney. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me for my show. How are you doing?
I am well. Thank you for having me, Dali. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Awesome. So let's get started. I was telling our audience in our intro that I was really excited when I met you because I love the approach of what it is that you do. So can you tell the viewers what it is that you do and how you got into it?
Absolutely. So, for starters, I'm Dilenny Guzman, and I am the founder and CEO of Career Empowerment Odyssey, also known as CEO. And what I do is I empower my students to develop the sense of direction and confidence that is necessary to unlock their unlimited potential for becoming CEOs of their dream careers. And what I mean by CEO of their dream careers, a lot of people confuse this is I'm not saying they're going to be CEOs in their jobs. I'm talking about owning their career choices so that they can end up in a career they want rather than a career by chance. How did I end up there? So I was born in the Dominican Republic, and now I immigrated when I was very young. My sisters and my older sister and I being the first generation in my whole family to get the American education. So I, from the beginning, really believed in this concept of the American dream, and I wanted to live it. And so I worked extremely hard for as long as I remember as a student. And I was an honor roll student, and I put myself through college, and I had massive amount of loans. And I graduated. I went on to my first job. And my first job, I was in a very reputable company, and I was a legal assistant there. And 2 years into that job, I ended up in a very bad case of sexual harassment that ended up leaving me wrongfully fired. As someone, I was fired because I was someone who was not trustworthy according to them. So that ended up breaking me apart because I felt like all the hard work I had put in as a student and just, into my education just fell apart. And so it broke me apart, and I went into a very low dip. And I promised myself, you know what, if this is how the workplace works, if this were to happen again, I would at least want to be in a job that I love, because I didn't love that job. And this was the first time I realized that I had never stopped to think what job I would love. And I was clueless. I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. And so I started exploring corporate America. I went into marketing. I went into finance, and I did that for a few years, just the exploration. And all I got out of that was straight misery from being in jobs that I didn't like, didn't inspire me. I didn't see myself growing in, and I was just living paycheck to paycheck. And I got to a point where I just felt so disappointed and failed by the system that I was like, you know what? I want to do something about this. There's obviously something that we're not being taught in school about how to actually be successful, because I did everything they told me, and I was nowhere near anything I had imagined. And so that's when I decided to become an educator. I went back to school. I went for a master's. I came out with two masters. One of them was in educational psychology, which is the foundational science of the work that I do. And from that, I became a teacher. I was in the classroom for 6 years. And 4 of those years, I actually taught abroad in international schools. I was in the Middle East for 3 years, a year in Colombia. And, I came to a point where I realized being a classroom teacher was not going to allow me to teach this, because this journey I took into being an educator really taught me what was that link, what was that thing that was missing that I had not learned in school. And now I was ready to teach it back, but the position as a classroom teacher didn't allow me to.
Mm.
So in June 2019, I decided to leave the classroom 6 years later. And I came back to New York City with this purpose. And when I came back, I noticed that the traditional way of getting a job as an educator was not offering the opportunity for me to step into the system or to a school and actually do this work that I wanted to do. And so I'm here. And I said, you know what? If this is not going to happen this way, I'm going to figure it out. And that's how CEO was born. And that's my baby.
That is amazing. So there are many elements here about your story that I actually love and appreciate too. Thank you for sharing about your journey, you know, that whole journey of having to come from another country and assimilate to the American culture and the American education system must be completely different than, you know, in the DR. I remember that as a child coming from Nicaragua at the age of 7, it was so different. So I can totally relate with
Yeah.
that part. Also, you mentioned that there was an element there that was missing, a key component. Can you talk a little bit about what that key component was?
What it was, what I found. All right. So in order to answer this question, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. All right.
Mhm.
All right. So, um, okay. So if I ask you, what do you do? What would you say? What would be your answer? Like, what's
Editor,
your career?
yeah, I'm an editor and a business owner.
You're a business owner.
Right.
So as an editor and a business owner, do you consider yourself to be successful?
I do with my business, not in my career field, my traditional job though.
That's really interesting. And why do you think that difference comes
I think it's because I'm not doing what I'm passionate about at my traditional job, and it's also not related to the education. I went to college and got a master's degree in something that I'm not using.
in? So you got a master's degree in something that you're not using. You have a job, right, that you got outside of schooling, but that's not really making you feel successful, but you feel successful as a business owner.
That's right. And yeah, that's right. Because at my job, I like it and I enjoy what I do, but I don't feel successful. I feel like it's just a job, you know?
So what is the difference to you? What is the difference between, the editing job and your business ownership that makes you feel like you're successful in one and not the other?
Well, first of all, I think the enjoyment and the passion that I have for my business is so different. I mean, it's just not there for my job, you know? It is there for my business. It's funny because just the other day my husband said, I mentioned something about my job and then my work. And he said, "Well, wait a minute. What are you talking about?"
So
Yeah,
yeah,
my side hustle is my day job, and
yeah,
then my real job is my business. And
right.
he was like, "Shouldn't that be the other way around?" I was like, "No." It's funny because I just came to that conclusion like maybe a year ago, and it's just stuck. So I'm like, that must be a good sign.
You know what's funny? That's something I actually do myself now that you mention it. Like I distinguish if I'm working in a job, I'll be like, that's the job. And if it's something related to my business, I call it my work. Which
Right.
is, yeah, it's really interesting that like there's a whole different mindset to it.
It is.
Now, so I can assume that your definition of success is dependent on how much you're enjoying your job and what you're getting out of it at a personal level. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. Right
All
on.
right. So my next question to you is this a definition of success that you learned in school?
No, that was totally different. That was get the great corporate job, go and make a lot of money, have
Mhm.
that white picket fence with the, you know, like the spouse and the dog and the kids. And I was like, oh, no, that's not what I want. I want something else. I mean, sure, there's nothing wrong with wanting the spouse and the dog and the kids. I think that the element that they really emphasized was go work for someone.
Yeah.
Go be somebody's money maker.
That is absolutely what it is. So basically in schools, what I find the missing link is that they are teaching students this universal recipe for what success is. And it's completely dependent on going to school, going to college, and getting a good job.
Yeah.
So a lot of people end up like me, and I'm sure there's going to be listeners that are going to be like, that's kind of me, like me. Like I actually did what I was told to do. I got the degree, but I don't feel happy. I don't feel successful in my job. And so the problem with school, I feel successful too. And I feel successful because my business is nowhere near where I would want it to be. But I'm going in the direction that I want. I'm doing something that I love. I'm impacting the way that I want to impact. And that is something that they do not teach us in school, right? There's this element to success that is very essential for people to succeed. And it's not something that we're even taught how to do, and that's how to be resourceful in the things that we want, right? So what do I mean by being resourceful? Someone who is resourceful is someone who knows what they want and they can figure out how to get it no matter what, right? They don't need someone to tell them what to do. They don't need someone to tell them where to go. They just kind of like figure it out. And it takes something to be resourceful, right? Not everyone is resourceful. Some people are naturally resourceful, but that doesn't mean everybody can't be resourceful. We can learn to be resourceful. So how can we learn how to do that? You need to find something that is going to drive you to be resourceful. And what is this thing going to be? It's something you either love very much, it's going to be something that you believe in, it's going to be something that you want, it's going to be something that you're passionate about, right? And I want to take it a step back. What I've noticed is when you speak to an individual, to an adult, and you ask them, what do you want to be? And they were to say, I just want to be successful. And you actually ask them, what does successful mean? They actually do not know how to answer that question, right? And the reason they don't know how to answer that question is because they're not taught that how to be successful, right? So school tells us go to school, they tell us the what, but not the how. And so, but when you speak to a person and they talk about someone that they know is successful, they will tell you, oh, they love what they do, or they really like it, or they really believe in it. So there's a common sense behind success that everyone understands,
right?
But not everyone knows how to apply it. And that's where this whole resourcefulness comes in, right? School is not teaching us how to do it. So we have to figure it out ourselves. And people think that generally people would say, like, I cannot be this way. But we can all learn how to be resourceful people. And it comes back to finding that thing that's going to drive you there. And then finding that thing is actually a really hard part that a lot of people don't know how to do. And a lot of people get scared by the word passion, find your passion, right? But people don't realize you don't have to go out and find your passion. Your passion will find you when you spend your time doing things that you love or that you enjoy. And it will actually come to you. And that's what happened to me. I never wanted to be a teacher. I never even thought I would be an educator. I actually have a phobia of public speaking, and I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing right now with you, right? Like right now I'm working through my own phobias, but this is my way of being resourceful because I know it's the only way I'm going to get to where I want. So I have a clear vision. I have a clear path, and I'm very aware of what my drive is. And just the fact that I am, pursuing that with all my might, that makes me do things that I would have never done before. And I think that's basically the link that is missing in education. And people are scared of, especially students, since they're not taught, they grow into adults. And then as adults, they become lost. And then because they never learn that resourcefulness, they kind of like just get stuck, right? So what I'm trying to build is pretty much a next generation that that at least has the option. They have the knowledge, even if they don't apply what I teach. That at least they have the knowledge that if one day they want to say, you know what, I actually want to do it, they know how to do it, which is what's missing right now.
Right. So then you're pretty much helping them open up their minds to more possibilities aside from the traditional thing that we're taught to prepare yourself to go work for someone, right? And to also follow your passion. So, what do you say to a kid like I was that kid that was asked, well, what are you passionate about? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember about to graduate and thinking, oh my gosh, I have no idea because I like doing so many things. So I also didn't really think that I could go to college and do well. So I enlisted in the military, and it turned out to be the greatest thing I ever did for myself because, of course, I did end up doing like getting my education and doing amazing things that I never expected. But I think for me, it was pure luck. So I always think about all those kids who were just like me, who either don't have the resources and that mentality of, oh, well, I don't have it, therefore I can't go to college, or I can't, I want to start a business, but, I don't have the money. So
Mhm.
what do you say to those people who are in that situation right now?
Well, a student that says that has they have a lot of interest, my advice to them is explore them and see where you're getting lost the most, where you're feeling the happiest the most, where you can actually see a potential to combine this into your work, into your profession, into your source of income. And now and that's like that's why successful people are successful. They are doing something they love and they figure out, how am I going to make money out of this, right? And then especially younger people and students, we grow up thinking, and I speak about this from a personal perspective as well. We are taught to go to college and it's like, make up your mind, what do you want to be, what's your major going to be? And no, like, our youth should be for exploring. Like, all of our 20s should be about exploring. Hey, you don't like this, you thought you wanted to be in this field and now you're in the real workplace and that's not working for you. It's okay to change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mentality that people have, like, well, I have this experience or this is my specialty. It's not your specialty, you're not a doctor in it. You know what I mean? Like, and there's this just whole element of fear of change and fear of exploration and fear of just figuring things out and just jumping into things with, as if it's like our last decision in the world. And it should not be like that, especially when we are young, when we are in our 20s. What I would advise to a student in your predicament is to not feel rushed and to make sure that decisions they're making are the right decisions for them. And the only way they can make sure of that is by experiencing it and living through them. So explore everything you're interested in, and eventually you're going. Like, it's a journey. Everybody thinks, oh, to be successful, it's a journey. Figuring out what you want to do is being successful, because you have to go through a journey to figure it out. It took me almost a whole decade of corporate America to figure out, what, this is what it is. But it took me all the failures, it took me all the bad experiences, and it took me to figure out what was not for me, to find what was right for me.
Right.
And we just students just sorry, there's a fly here. Students really need to be open-minded and not feel that pressure that they have to become like these full adults with definite decisions for the rest of their lives. No, we're always changing, and it's okay to change.
I agree. I think that there is a huge amount of pressure, probably more pressure than when you and I were growing up, on getting that college degree, getting that right job, making money, being dependent, and not having to be one of those statistics that goes back home and lives with their parents. um, but to go back a little bit about what you said, uh, the passion thing, I think that people are not so afraid to follow the passion. I think they're more afraid of that, or they believe more of, well, I can't afford to follow my passion. I have to choose the money maker. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what ends up just making it a lot harder for them to actually realize what their passion truly is, and that their passion can actually be their source of income without
Mm-hmm.
feeling like you're stealing, or being a horrible salesperson. And a long time ago, somebody told me that when you provide a really good service to the world, then it is okay to then go and allow people to pay you for that knowledge that you are putting out, because it's helping create more abundance in the world. And it was hard for me to accept that, because at first it feels weird. It feels weird having to name a price on what because to you it becomes so easy, because you had that knowledge, regardless whether it was through college or a personal experience that you gained it. So I think that's something that hinders the progress of people following that passion. But let's talk about now, how do you implement all of these mindsets, and how do you help the your clients? And are your clients the children, and what ages? Can you explain a little bit
Yeah,
what you're talking
absolutely. But before I answer that question, I actually want to go back on what you said, because it's something, it is very common where people feel they have to choose between their passion and making money, right? For example, an artist, a dancer, a choreographer. It doesn't matter. So what happens is that people think that they have to choose between the two, and that's a problem. And especially when you have, like, let's say a generation like me, that I'm a first generation, so you have this whole bunch of adults around you that don't know any better, and they're like, you need to get a corporate job, you can't be a dancer, what money is dancing gonna get you, right? If I could do life again knowing what I know, I will be dancing,
about?
because that's like my thing to do, right? um but that's when, again, when the whole thing of resourcefulness comes in, right? Because when you're thinking, I'm not going to make money, you're probably thinking, well, what can I be, a ballerina? But like, how much can I make as a ballerina? But why can't you be Beyonce's choreographer? You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, just figuring it out, and really thinking outside the box. When you really want it, you go for it and you find it. That's what it boils down to, you
Right.
know. And to go back to your question, so what I've done is I combined the science that I've been researching, plus my experiences, plus my observations of people who fit my CEO framework. And CEO is not just an acronym for the name, or, with a symbolism to what I do. Is actually also a 3-step framework that I created, where I walk students through, I teach them how to find that thing that drives them, um, how to develop the mindset behind getting that thing that they want, and how to develop an action plan to actually go for it no matter what. um, and then I teach this. So my target audience is our students who are already making decisions for their adult lives. In 7th grade, we already start deciding, okay, what high school I want to go to, what high school I want to go to. Usually depends on what is it that I want to do. So I would say from 7th grade up to 12th grade, where students are still deciding, that is the core of the audience I want to reach. However, I know I'm open to, let's say, a college student who doesn't know what to do. So many people are in college and have no idea what career choices to make. I remember, actually, when I was in college, it was my senior year, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I actually went to counseling for it because I'm like, I'm about to go out in the real world and I am clueless about what I'm gonna do with my life. So I am open to that, but as CEO, I want to get into schools and I want my target is students because I they need it the most. And we are in a place where, you know, we're going through a social and technological revolution, even though, people are thinking, yeah, we're going to go back to, the normal life. There's not going to be back to a normal life because we're actually stepping forward into an unknown. And now more than ever, students need to learn, especially because we, the adults, don't know what's on the other side either because we haven't experienced it. So resourcefulness and just, that ability to figuring things out and just applying your knowledge is something that is going to be so big for this next generation of students going out there. CEO is a 3-step framework, and the framework, so the C stands for channel your destination. So I walk through the students around, uh, I walk the students towards at least knowing how to figure out what it is that's going to drive them. And then once we go through that step and we go through, and there's also, I have a lot of activities and engagement within my teachings. The second step is to empower their minds. So I walk them through the mind hacks and the, characteristics that are necessary to really be a resourceful person. Like, you need to have courage to do things that you have never done before. You need to feel capable of being able to do what you want to do. And you need to feel worthy of it. How many times don't we stop ourselves like, why would someone pay me $100 for me to teach them what I know, like you were saying earlier? So, there's certain characteristics that are just so essential to be a resourceful person. And that's what we talk about in the second step, which is empower your minds. And the last step is own your destiny. So taking what we learned in step 1 and basically the mindset that needs to be built around it, we've developed an action plan, which is owning your destiny. Right now you take action, now you go to the punch. So take action on developing your mindset and actually getting to where it is that you want to get to. And that is basically the whole, what do I want to say? So in conclusion, that gives the student pretty much the whole concept of what it is that they need to do to be CEOs of their own dream careers. And actually, I bring in something good. I actually also have a dream team of people who fit this framework of CEO, who I personally consider to be CEOs of their own careers. And what I do, which I actually already did once, and it was amazing because I brought in a person who fit the framework and was a perfect example, but didn't know the science behind it. Right? And so what was cool about it, he was able to talk to the students, and when the students asked them questions, sometimes his answers went against what the science said, but as he elaborated it, then it became part of like the whole teaching. So, people who, even not being aware that they are CEOs from a mindset perspective, they still jump into it and express themselves as people who are CEOs and do have the mindset and do have the sense of direction and do take the type of action that they need to take in order to become CEOs.
That sounds like a really rich program, and I like that you tackle that, the mindset in order to find out what you're planning on doing. Now, so let's say a student decides, okay, I'm going to go to college and I'm the first one in my family to go to college. How do I even get started? Do you help them with the college application or learning how to search for the right college depending on what it is they want to pursue?
Yes. So honestly, my goal is to write a curriculum for schools that could go throughout the entire year, because these are topics that could be never ending. It could easily go from a 1 day, 1 hour workshop to a 4 year curriculum in high school, right? Because it's just, there's so many elements that can be incorporated. So beyond the framework, yeah. So let's say if I were to be hired to say for 6 weeks to teach my CEO framework, I could absolutely extend that time, and then I'll get into the nitty gritty. And these are things that once I have a full blown curriculum where I'm not just teaching the framework, I'm going to include, such as, networking. Networking is such an essential part of success. Like people would never even know. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
Um, resume writing, interviewing etiquette, finance, financial education, credit building, and all these things that are really essential for the physical part of our success. And yes, I do offer them, and I actually do have material for that as well. But that would be kind of like an extension of the mindset portion of it.
Okay.
So I can actually be reached at my website. It's ceodyssey.org. And they can either send me a message via the website, or they can send me an email at hello@ceodyssey.org. And I use Instagram a lot. My Instagram handle is Dilenny_Guzman_. And they can shoot me a DM in there and just reach out to me. I'm very responsive. And I actually like to give my Instagram, because I have shared my journey. Like, even when I didn't know I was on this journey, I have been sharing my journey of how I even got here throughout my Instagram story. Like my whole Instagram, yeah. Like actually from the very beginning, that's when I started Instagram. So they can actually see my journey of how I became CEO of CEO. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very, very special too. So Dilenny, is there anything else that you would like to announce to our viewers, or any upcoming events that you want to?
Yes, actually I do. So I mentioned earlier how we're currently going through a social and a technological revolution, and traditional careers are really disappearing. And I know that parents are not experiencing their child's level of motivation at home. So I want to offer a free workshop for parents who are interested in learning more about what is the CEO framework, just the foundational science behind it, and basically so that it can be a support system to their children's success, as well as be a source of motivation for them.
Awesome. So when is this again?
This is going to be on Tuesday, May 26th at 6 p.m.
All right then. And where can people subscribe?
People who are interested actually can send me the email, like I had the hello@ceodyssey.org, or they can go to my website, or they can reach me through my Instagram in order to express interest, and I will follow up with an email. They need to provide their email.
Wonderful. Well, Dilenny, thank you so much for this interview. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and sharing the offer with my viewers.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
You're welcome. I can't wait to hear how the workshop goes. All right. Thank you. Well, there you have it. Dilenny has made this really sweet offer to give a workshop on Tuesday, the 26th, 6 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you check out her website and register for that. And if you like this video, please click the like button, share it, and subscribe. If you also want to subscribe to my newsletter, please check me out at Dalitalks.com. And by subscribing, I send you a little gift in your inbox. It is a template of a bullying incident report that I created to make it easier for the reporting process. And you can share that with educators, guardians, with other family members and friends. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you until next time.